Somewhere in your house, there's probably a drawer you don't open very often. Old tax returns, a folder of insurance papers, and maybe, buried in there, a letter from the Social Security Administration with a number printed on it. $0 and 0 cents. You applied for your spousal benefit or your survivor benefit after your husband or your wife died. And the government looked at your file and told you that you were entitled to nothing, not a reduced amount, nothing. And when you asked why, somebody at the counter said something about an offset and a pension and a rule with an acronym you'd never heard of. And the conversation was over in about 4 minutes. So you went home. You put the letter in the drawer. And you never applied again. Why would you? They told you the answer was 0. That letter is wrong. It has been wrong since January of 2024. The rule that produced that 0 was repealed, killed, signed out of existence by the President of the United States. And the Social Security Administration has already paid out $17 billion in back pay to more than 3 million people because of it. But here's what nobody at that counter is going to do. They are not going to call you. They are not going to write you. They are not going to find that letter in your drawer and fix it. There are people right now, widows, widowers, retired spouses, who are owed thousands of dollars in back pay and who are still sitting at home believing their number is 0. If that letter is in your house, the money is real and the clock is running. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a CPA, and nothing in this video is personal financial advice. I'm here to hand you the facts and point at the door. Where you go with them is a conversation for a professional who actually works for you. But you can't have that conversation if nobody ever told you the door was open. So let's fix that. Let me be precise about who I'm talking to, because this doesn't hit everybody and I'm not going to pretend it does. This is about people who spent their careers in public service or who were married to somebody who did, teachers, police officers, firefighters, postal workers, federal employees under the old civil service retirement system, state and municipal workers whose paychecks went into a government pension instead of into Social Security. If your husband taught school for 30 years, this is about you. If your wife wore a badge, this is about you. If you buried a spouse who spent their working life in a state or city or federal job, and you went down to the Social Security office afterward expecting a survivor's check and walked out with nothing, this is about you. Over 3.2 million people were caught by the 2 rules I'm about to name. 3.2 million. That is not a rounding error. That is not a handful of unlucky cases. That is a population the size of a major American city. And most of them were told in writing that they didn't qualify for money they had every right to. And a lot of them never even got as far as the letter. That's the part that keeps me up, because plenty of people walked into that office, described their situation, and were told across the counter before any paperwork was filed at all, don't bother. You've got a government pension. You won't get anything. So they didn't file. There's no application in the system. There's no denial letter. There is no record that they ever tried, which means, as far as the Social Security Administration is concerned today, those people do not exist. If your spouse worked in public service, a teacher, police, fire, federal, postal, do me a favor and put your state in the comments. I want to see how far this reaches, and I want the people watching to see they are not the only ones this happened to, because I promise you, they are not. Now let me show you the rule that did it. The rule has a name, the government pension offset. Here's what it did in plain English. If you were entitled to a spousal or a survivor benefit from Social Security, and you also collected a pension from a job that did not pay into Social Security, the government took 2/3 of that pension and subtracted it from your Social Security check. Not 2/3 of your Social Security. 2/3 of your pension. We're a completely different pot of money. used as a weapon against your Social Security. Walk the math with me, because this is where people finally understand what happened to them. Say your late husband taught high school for 32 years. He earned a pension. And say you, the surviving spouse, are entitled to a survivor benefit from Social Security worth $1,600 a month based on your own record and your marriage. Now, say your own pension from your years working for the school district pays you $2,400 a month. 2/3 of $2,400 is $1,600, and $1,600 minus $1,600 is zero. That's it. That's the whole trick. Your entire survivor benefit gone, not reduced, not trimmed, erased down to the penny by a subtraction problem you never agreed to and were never warned about. Never. And it gets worse because there was a second rule running right alongside it. The Windfall Elimination Provision. That one didn't touch your spousal benefit. It went after your own Social Security, the money you earned in the years you did pay into the system. In 2024, that provision could cut a worker's own benefit by as much as $587 a month, capped at half the value of their non-covered pension. So think about what that meant for a two-income public service household. One rule shaved down what you earned yourself. The other rule wiped out what you were owed as a spouse. Some people got hit by both. Now, I want to be careful here, because this is the part where a lot of channels start shouting about a conspiracy. And I'm not going to do that. Nobody snuck this into law in the dead of night. The government pension offset was passed by Congress in 1977. It sat in the statute books in plain sight for almost 50 years. Its stated purpose was to keep people from collecting a full government pension and a full spousal benefit at the same time. That was the theory. Here's what it produced in practice. A 71-year-old widow who worked her whole life, who buried her husband, standing at a counter being told the United States government owes her nothing. You weren't denied because you didn't qualify. You qualified. You were denied because of a formula. And that formula is dead now. So where is your money? On January 5th, 2025, the president signed the Social Security Fairness Act into law. It didn't reform the government pension offset. It didn't soften it or phase it out or grandfather anybody in. It repealed it completely, permanently, and it repealed the Windfall Elimination Provision right along with it. And it wasn't just going forward. The repeal was made retroactive to January of 2024, meaning the government now owes people money for every month since then that they were shorted. The Social Security Administration went to work, and by the summer of 2025, they had issued more than 3.1 million retroactive payments totaling $17 billion. The average lump sum going out the door was $6,710. $6,710 landing in the bank accounts of teachers, cops, firefighters, and their spouses. People who had been told for years, sometimes decades, that they were entitled to nothing. So that's a happy ending, right? Except the Social Security Administration can only pay a claim that exists. Think about what that actually means. The system went through its files, found the people who had applications on record, recalculated their benefits, and cut them checks. Efficient, automatic, good. But if you were one of the people I described earlier, it was the ones who walked into that office, got told across the counter, you've got a pension, don't bother, and walked back out without ever filing a single form, then there is no application in the file. There is nothing to recalculate. There is no record for a computer to find. You are invisible to the system that owes you money. More than 278,000 people have figured this out and filed new claims since the repeal. As of the middle of 2025, about 92% of those had been processed, which is good news. And it also tells you something uncomfortable. those 278,000 people are the ones who happen to hear about this, who happen to see a news segment or get a call from a former colleague or have a daughter who reads the financial pages. Nobody at Social Security went looking for them. And there's a second problem, and this one is still an open fight as I'm recording this. Some people who did file, who did everything right, are finding that Social Security is only paying them 6 months of back money instead of paying them all the way back to January of 2024. 6 months, when the law says the repeal reaches back further than that. And the people getting squeezed are, in a lot of cases, the exact people who were told years ago that their benefit would be zero. This is not me speculating. United States Senators Susan Collins, Bill Cassidy, John Fetterman, John Cornyn have formally pushed back on the Social Security Administration's interpretation of how far that retroactivity reaches. That's a bipartisan group of senators telling a federal agency it is shortchanging people. That fight is live right now, and it is not settled. So let's tally this up. The rule that zeroed you out is gone. Billions have already gone out the door. And there are people still sitting at home with that letter in the drawer, and other people who filed and got a fraction of what they're owed, and the agency isn't coming to find either group. If you were ever told your spousal or survivor benefit would be zero, type yes in the comments. I want the number visible. I want somebody who's still on the fence about whether this applies to them to scroll down and see how many of you there are, because now we get to the part that actually gets your money back. Here's what you do, not next month, this week. First, log into your My Social Security account online. If you don't have one, create one. It takes about 15 minutes and you'll need it for everything that follows. Once you're in, pull up your current monthly benefit amount and compare it against what you were receiving in 2023. If the Fairness Act touched your record, that number should have moved. If it's sitting exactly where it was before January of 2024, that is your first red flag. Second, check your payment history in that same account. You are looking for a lump sum. 3.1 million of these have already gone out, averaging $6,710 apiece. If you had a claim on file and you were affected by either of these rules, there should be a deposit in that history. If there isn't one, your case either hasn't been processed or it hasn't been identified. And either way, you need to be on the phone with them. Third, and this is the big one, this is the one that reaches the most people. If you never filed because somebody told you not to bother, you have to file now. I want to be blunt about this because it's the whole reason I made this video. Social Security is not going to find you. There is no application in your file. There is no denial letter to reverse. As far as the system is concerned, you never asked. So ask. File the application for the spousal or survivor benefit you were talked out of. Whatever a clerk told you in 2011 or 2018 about a rule that no longer exists is not binding on anybody. That rule is dead. Your claim is not. Fourth, if you already filed and you got a back payment and it only covered about 6 months, do not just accept that as the final answer. That is precisely the situation those 4 senators are fighting about right now. The agency's position and Congress's position are not the same, and cases are under review. Document what you received, document the date, and keep watching this story because the answer you were given may not be the answer that holds. And fifth, I have to give you the honest ceiling on this because I'd rather you hear it from me than from a form letter. The repeal reaches back to January of 2024. That's the wall. If the government pension offset zeroed out your survivor benefit in 2009 and again in 2010 and every single year after that, the law does not give you that money back. Not 1 month of it. Congress drew the line at January 2024 and everything on the far side of that line stays where it fell. I know that's hard to hear. Some of you did that math while I was talking and you're sitting there thinking about 15 years of checks that are never coming. And I'm not going to soften that because it's true. But look at the line from the other direction. Every month from January 2024 to right now is money that is legally yours, sitting in a federal account, waiting on a piece of paperwork you haven't filed. And every additional month you wait to fix your record is another month where you're collecting a reduced check that you don't have to be collecting. The past you can't get back. Starting today, you can. If you know a retired teacher, a retired cop, a firefighter's widow, send them this video, not as a favor to me, because there is a very good chance nobody has told them. And there is a very good chance the money is theirs. Understand where we are in this story. This isn't finished. The law passed. The rules are dead. But the payout is still being sorted out, case by case. And there is an open argument in Washington right now about how far back the agency has to reach. When a fight like that gets resolved, the people who are already in the system, the ones with a claim on file, with a date stamped on it, with a paper trail, those are the people the fix gets applied to. The people with nothing on file are, once again, the people nobody can find. So don't wait for the news to tell you it's settled. Get your name in the system while the system is still writing checks. And if you take one thing away from the last 16 minutes, make it this. In this country, you do not get paid what you are owed. You get paid what you claim. Those are two different amounts, and the gap between them is where 3.2 million people have been living for the better part of 50 years. Which brings me back to that drawer. That letter with the 0 on it is not a verdict. It is not the government's final word on what your life's work was worth. And it is not a receipt for a debt that got settled. It is a piece of paper describing a rule that no longer exists. And it has been describing a rule that no longer exists for over a year now, while you kept believing it. Go get it out of the drawer, look at the date, then go log into your account. Because the only thing standing between you and money that is legally yours right now is the fact that somebody years ago told you not to bother, and you believed them. Don't believe them anymore.